So I will get that recording started. And I am going to now turn it over to Dr. Shirley Fleming for our centering moment.
Good morning. I am so glad to see you. And I want to invite you first before we begin our centering, just to take a scroll through there, like on my screen, there are 3 pages, just to see who's here with you. And those who are comfortable, please make yourself visible, just so we can take in all the folks who are going to be on this journey with us today. Wow. There are lots of us here today, and I'm glad to see all of us here today. But before we get started with our workshop, we'd like to spend a little bit of time in centering. And so I want to invite each of you, if you're comfortable, take a seat, make yourself comfortable, put your feet flat on the floor. We're going to do a brief breathing exercise. I'm going to ask Kirsten to bring up the imagery first for us. At the end of our breathing exercise, you will hear a very soft chime. That will be a signal that we are ending. And at that time, we'll have an opportunity a few of us to share verbally our response to the meditation time. And if you're not comfortable speaking verbally or don't get a chance to do so, please use our chat box to express yourself. And so my invitation is for us to take in the image that is before us and to think about something that gives you hope and peace in these times. Now, if you are comfortable, I'd like to invite you to close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and nourish your entire body. Blow out slowly. And continue to breathe. Breathing in very slowly and being conscious of the gift of air that is nourishing your cells. Blow it out slowly. And just continue in this mode as you're comfortable. And when we get to our time, you will hear a soft chime, and that will be the signal that we are now back together to reflect. Enjoy your thoughts of what brings you hope. Breathe into that hope. Okay. How was that experience for you? Anyone want to share verbally? If so, unmute yourself or you can share in the chat box. I see some thumbs up.
It's always good to take a moment to center yourself and to reflect on the goodness of the Lord and to bring yourself into that space of oneness. And it's good to be able to breathe. Our people can't breathe today. It's good to be able to breathe. Thank you.
Thank you. Joyce, you were saying something?
No.
Okay.
I'm good. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
Shirley, you're on mute if you're speaking.
I'm seeing calming and reflective in the chat box. Calming and uplifting. Very powerful with all of us together focusing on hope. All right. Thank you for participating in that. And now I want to turn it over to my colleague, Kirsten.
All right, so we're just going to set the table a little bit, just so you have a little bit of background and context for why we're gathering today and who this network is and how we're going to proceed today, or what some of the kind of the focuses that we're going to use for our time together. So I'm going to share slides again. All right, well, oh, there we go. Okay, so crisis and opportunity, what are we called to do? That's sort of the way we framed our experience together today. And this actually was something we were first talking about a number of weeks ago when we were really just thinking about the coronavirus and COVID-19 experience, and kind of considering that as people of faith and as people of spirit, we don't necessarily want to just get back to normal. We want to get back to better. This could be an opportunity in this time of crisis for us to do something different together as people. And so that was the original impetus for this session. And then, of course, in the meantime, in the last couple of weeks, we've had some serious racial reckoning in our society as well. And so that is now part of the mix. And we know also that the economy is another stressor. So there's lots of crisis, but also lots of opportunity for us as leaders within the faith and spiritual traditions that we come from to head somewhere new and work together on creating a new kind of reality. So that's the conversation today. It's meant to be rooted in our awareness of crisis and difficulty, but also really solidly connected in with hopefulness and a sense of opportunity. So we're going to talk a little bit, I'm sorry, hear that truck that just went by. We're going to talk a little bit about who the Chicagoland Trauma-Informed Congregations Network is, because you're part of it. If you're here today, you're part of that network. I've said a little bit already about why we've called this gathering, because we really feel that there's an opportunity for us to do more together to get to a new place. And then what's the framework we're going to use for our conversation today, and how would the meeting be structured? So the Chicagoland Trauma-Informed Congregations Network really kind of grew out of a summit that we held in 2017, where we gathered people from all over the region to come together to talk about this issue of trauma and resilience. There was a new emphasis and focus sort of across different sectors on the idea of trauma and resilience and adverse childhood experiences. And so we held a summit, and out of that meeting came 4 priority areas that people said they wanted to work more on. One was, let's find out about what exists already, who's doing what, and how can we start to connect with each other. People wanted a curriculum that was faith-rooted that focused on trauma and resilience and what it means to be trauma-informed congregations. People wanted to learn more about restorative justice practices and to expand the use of those practices into faith communities, and also to build our community of practice, to really learn to know each other, to learn from each other's wisdom, and to really grow our community and our wisdom and our expertise together. So in the last 3 years, these are some of the things that we've been doing. We were really fortunate that the Chicago Department of Public Health, through their RECAST grant, Resilience in Communities After Stress and Trauma, had funding available. And so they've been our major funder and also sort of an administrative hub, along with the Center for Faith and Community Health Transformation have been sort of the anchors just in terms of convening meetings and doing some of the administrative support. But we have a planning team of about 50 people, many of whom aren't real active, but come when they can. And so we invite you as well, if you'd like to be part of that kind of core planning team, to let us know, and we'd be happy to include you. We did find a curriculum called that we've been using called Risking Connection in Faith Communities. It is rooted in the Abrahamic religious traditions. So it includes sort of examples and thinking and theological approaches from the Christian, Jewish, and Muslim traditions. We prepared 13 facilitators to be able to present that, and we've done 8 formal workshops across the region in the last couple of years. People wanted to know more about restorative justice practices, and we had a wonderful conference that was hosted by our restorative justice colleagues on lessons from Rwanda about restorative justice and reconciliation. And we've held a number of community of practice meetings, which you can see there, including one on sacred wounds, understanding that faith communities are not always places of healing, but sometimes are places of trauma and hurt and abuse themselves, of exclusion and judgment. And so really wanting to explore that so that we can really talk authentically and completely about the role of faith communities. We are very clear as a network on understanding trauma, not just as an interpersonal kind of event that happens only in childhood, but really understanding it from the soil on up through the leaves and the branches. So we start with an understanding of trauma in our society across history. So adverse historical, collective historical experiences, things that we experience as groups of people, as populations of people, as communities of people. Racism, of course, as we know now, refugees, war experiences during war, those kinds of experiences that affect whole communities for decades and generations. We want to pay special attention to that and understand the way in which that feeds all these other layers. So adverse community experiences, we have a lot of experiences in our communities also that are adverse or that are challenging. Let's see. This is very sensitive apparently. Okay, I won't touch the mouse. So discrimination, experiences of lack of opportunity, economic opportunity, violence in the community, some of these other kinds of things, poverty experiences, and how that then translates into people's everyday lives in terms of maternal depression or incarceration or homelessness, or what it means to come out in our society as gay or lesbian or bisexual or trans. All the kinds of things that affect us adversely. So we really have a broad definition: interpersonal, community, structural, systemic. All of those aspects are things that we feel are really important to talk about. So the 3 areas that we're focused on is 1, preventing trauma from happening in the first place, again, at all levels. Knowing how to respond and healing, not only healing, but also transformative ways, so that we don't just heal, but we also transform the ways in which trauma and adversity occur. And then also promoting resilience, understanding that just as we can have collective experiences of trauma, we also have collective experiences of resilience and of hope, and of what it is that gives us the fuel that we need in order to thrive as people and as communities. We use the framework, like when we encourage congregations to think about becoming trauma informed, these are the areas that we encourage them to do their own study and their own work on. So the first 4 R's come from SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration at the federal government. So the first thing is just to realize that trauma is pervasive, that these adverse experiences are things that we all go through. They look different for some of us, they're varying degrees, but we all have these experiences and they affect how we respond in situations. And then to recognize how those kinds of experiences show up in our families, in our congregations, in our communities. And then knowing how to respond. How do we respond to that when we see it in ways that, again, are healing and transformative? And then finally, resisting re-traumatization. So not feeling like we need to meet behavior that may be coming out of traumatic experience with some other kind of traumatic violence or trying to control it. But really being sensitive and aware about how we're responding in a way that resists re-traumatization. And then we've added 2 more. The 5th one is repair, and that goes back to the issue that I mentioned before about not all faith life is healing, and that sometimes we experience trauma and adversity, and sometimes our faith communities are not places of safety. And so calling congregations, calling faith communities to be cognizant of that and accountable for that, and to take responsibility for that and to make that right if that can be identified as something happening in the faith community. And then the last one is one we share as well with Recast, which is resilience, and really understanding that trauma is a force, but also resilience also is a force. That's important that we pay attention to as well. So I'm going to say a little bit more about resilience because, again, we use the word trauma a lot, but I also really want us to use the word resilience or protective factors or hope or whatever it is that the word is that best expresses it for you. But this idea that risk factors are not predictive factors because of protective factors, which is a quote that comes from Dr. Carl Bell, who's a community psychologist based in Chicago who died last year. And who's just been a real leader in this space. And there he is. I'm sorry, I did two slides on him, Dr. Carl Bell. And then also just to lift up this quote from Bessel van der Kolk, who some of you are probably familiar with in his book, The Body Keeps the Score, where he talks about social support as the most powerful protection against becoming overwhelmed by stress and trauma. And the critical issue is reciprocity, being truly heard and seen by the people around us, feeling that we are held in someone else's mind and heart. So that's an example of a protective factor that can help us mediate some adversity or challenge that we experience. So what do we do in our faith communities that supports resilience? We sing. Rhythm and music and the joint expression of music is, in the science, one of the key protective factors. So let's celebrate the way in which we do that in our faith communities. We have ritual, especially ritual around kids, but all of our rituals are things, again, that help us to build resilience and to be protected against the factors of adverse experiences. The kind of care and support that we show to each other in times of need, or especially to folks who are vulnerable. Eating together, sharing food together, sharing community together, very powerful thing that we do that supports resilience. Taking social action, speaking out for social justice, especially across religious lines. Having children in leadership, giving children the opportunity to lead and be seen, be held in someone else's heart and mind, as Bessel van der Kolk says. Providing intergenerational support and positive adult relationships. These kids are refugees, so even more so to have an adult that they can connect with. Intergenerational relationships of just just casual acquaintance and knowing each other, and being friends together. Grace, having a place where we're not perfect and we can go and find grace and find space for us to be just as who we are, imperfect. So the three pathways that we encourage congregations to take as our trauma conscious and healing engaged communities, as our trauma informed congregations network, are one, first to connect to self, second to connect to others, and third to connect to higher power. And we acknowledge our colleague Hema Pokarna, who really invited us into this way of thinking about this process for how we can move into this space of becoming trauma informed and healing engaged. So first, to connect to self, to really become aware of what we need to know in our own selves and what we have going on in our own selves, connecting to others to learn, to share wisdom, and then to take action together, to connect to higher purpose, which draws us into deeper action. Here are just some ways that we think about how we can do that as a network. So connecting to self, discussing and affirming the principles that we're working with, creating mission statements, creating a plan for how we're going to integrate these things into our congregations and into our settings where we are, connecting with others, learning. We have lots and lots of learning opportunities, and we'll share some of those at the end. And then connecting with higher purpose. How can we take action? How can we really become visible in the way in which we are working together? So I'm going to turn it back over to Shirley Fleming, who's going to talk a little bit more about how our gathering time is structured today.
Okay, thank you. So I want to give you an idea of how we have structured the day. I hope that everyone got a copy of the agenda, but I'm briefly just going to kind of walk us through to tell you what is expected. I also want to encourage people during this webinar to take good care of yourself. I know that some people get overwhelmed by all the FaceTime, and so feel comfortable in turning off the visual portion if you need to. If you need to take a break, get some water, get some coffee, do so. Make yourself comfortable. This is not a classroom. It's a gathering in which we want you to take good care of yourself. But for today, we're going to begin with a check-in, which will come next, just so you can have an opportunity to connect with other people. And Minister Michelle Day will explain the check-in process. We will have some small group breakouts in which this group, we are a large group. We had 120 registrants and a waiting list. And so we want you to be able to have conversations with people who are wise people who have come to this space. And so there will be a breakout time in which you'll be in smaller groups and have an opportunity a couple of times during this gathering to share with each other. And then an invitation to come back into large space so that everyone can gain from the wisdom that's been shared in the smaller groups. So there'll be a harvesting time. We have with us some storytellers who will tell stories around one of the questions and invite you to do some reflection and some sharing out around the question that goes with it. We will also have resource sharing at the end and sharing some opportunities for people to get more information, to get more involved with the network. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to Minister Attorney Michelle Day for our check-in this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Shirley said, we definitely need to breathe in that which is giving us life. And Dr. Fleming helped us to breathe that in earlier. So now we want to reflect on what it is that's giving you life. Before we begin looking externally, we want to look internally and connect to ourselves. So the question that you'll be responding to when you go into your breakout rooms is, how am I finding new life or hope in this time? you're going to talk to two different sets of people. So you're going to have 10 minutes in your first breakout room, and then you'll come back to the main room, and then you'll have 10 minutes with a whole different set of people in another breakout room responding to the same question. So we get to share with a number of people. How am I finding new life or hope in this time? 10 minutes in each breakout room, and then we'll come back together.
Great.
Are we ready for the first breakout?
Yes, I'm going to send everyone to your breakout rooms now. So you should see a cue that tells you that the breakout room is open. And Kirsten and Shirley, if you could just ignore the prompt for you all.
Am I supposed to go into breakout room 8?
No, ignore it, please.
Good morning.
Hi, if you're still with us, please make sure you click the prompt to go into the breakout room.
Time, we're going to move to the rest of our agenda for today. However, we would like for you to enter into the chat room. Now, don't touch the send button. We're doing something a little different, but enter into the chat room your thoughts or a thought that really resonated with you about how am I finding new life or hope in this time. Don't press send until we tell you to press send, because we're going to do a waterfall of thoughts, a waterfall share of thoughts. Don't press send. Okay, are you ready? Type in your thoughts, and I'll tell you when to press send. How am I finding new life or hope in this time? Okay, so does everybody have theirs typed in or you need more time? Okay, we're gonna count down by 10, and when we get to 0, hit that send button. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, send. Oh, wow. Somebody put learning new technology has given me new life. Stay connected, tending to nature and being in nature. Oh, there's so many people coming together under stress. Through the people that I talk and work with and by reaching out to others. Enjoying Jesus no matter what. Oh, I love it. Someone put this change in systemic racism. Stay connected with God through God's word and prayer. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing what it was that is giving you new life. And I will turn it back over to Dr. Fleming.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, wow, that was just reading that waterfall. Wonderful. Oh, just great thoughts. I'm excited. I'm excited. So our next invitation to you is to contemplate one of the questions that we sent out in this invitation to this event, and that is, what are the lessons you are learning that could be helpful to others? We do recognize, or at least we believe, that in this time, though it is chaotic and traumatic and lots of lessons are learned in this, if we take the time to kind of sit back and observe the full picture, that things do come forward. And those lessons are things that can potentially help us to go forward and to inspire us to do even greater works. And so what we've done today is to invite 3 people to briefly share a story around this question, and then for us collectively to take a moment to reflect ourselves on what are the lessons that we're being taught in this time that would be good to share with others. And then I'll invite you to type that into the chat. And again, don't send it yet, but just put it into the chat and we'll do another countdown. I like that countdown, Michelle. And then we'll let the water flow, okay? So the first person who I'm gonna invite to share with us is Reverend Harriet Dart. Harriet, where are you? I'm looking for you. Are you here?
I'm here.
Wonderful.
I've got my unmute button on.
Okay.
Well, what I'm present to is just the power of community and connection. And 2 aspects to it. One, how important and valuable it is, and how it's possible for us to embrace technology or tip our toe in technology and zoom right in, or just kind of tip in, and that it works both ways because this connection is part of community. And so I have connected to my community of singers in Vermont. On Tuesday night, I have a chorus practice. I've connected to a church that I went to for a concert with the same group in Guilford, Vermont. So I attend their church on Sunday morning, and then I come to my church in Deerfield, and then I go to my church in Oak Park, all electronically. But another thing is this connection goes both ways. So I am dealing with my older sister and a friend who just don't do technology. And particularly for my sister, she moved to the coast of Georgia partly because she met a community in her church there. Again, this community, people accompanying us. But since she hasn't been able to go to church since the middle of March, and she doesn't use technology, she is getting more and more and more isolated. And so there's that technical decline. So I'm aware of how that reciprocity that Kirsten talked about earlier, and I'm aware of the need. So I'm learning how people who are isolated need us and how we might connect with them. And there's a lot, I mean, that's just sort of the personal aspect. And then having the world and the connection really of being aware, more and more people being aware of the structures that of oppression and racism, but that have brought us, and how we can begin to make inroads on that.
Thank you, Harriet, for sharing that powerful story of, lessons that you're learning how, that could help other people. So I'd like to invite Reverend Ann Gonzalez, our next storyteller, to share.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think for me, what has really kind of come to life in a new way is who we are as a human body. I constantly preach about how the scripture says that, we're not male or female, Jew or Gentile, slave or free, we're all one. And I think what we've seen in the last several weeks is really humanity coming together and saying in one voice, we are one. And I think we've seen that in some incredible ways. And so for me, it just is a way of kind of realizing what it really means and see it actually happen, live and in color, if you will. I think the other thing that brings me hope and also makes me pause is when I was looking at that tree of ACEs and realizing all of the different levels of trauma and how very important it is to recognize those, all of what that encompasses when we talk with a person or a community, that we're not just dealing with whatever is currently presenting itself, but we're dealing with layer on top of layer on top of layer. And if we want to really help people walk through this trauma, we really have to walk through those layers. And so I think for me, those are the kind of the two things are the takeaways from what I've been seeing and experiencing.
Thank you, Reverend Gonzalez, for sharing those sort of lessons and what we're learning in this time. Our next storyteller is Dr. Hema Pakarna. Thank you, Hema. You're on mute.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Okay.
Well, I'm here.
Yes.
Yes. So the story that I like to tell, which is written by Anthony DeMello, and I personalize it and say it. And it is that I walked into a brand new shop in the marketplace, and to my surprise, found God behind the counter. And I asked, what do you sell here? And he said, everything to your heart's desires, my dear. Hardly daring to believe what I was hearing, I decided to ask for the best things a human being could ask and wish for. I said, I want peace of mind and love and happiness and wisdom and freedom from fear. And then as an afterthought, I added, not just for me, for everyone on earth. God smiled and he said, I think you've got me wrong, my dear. We don't sell fruits here. only seeds.
Mm.
We don't sell fruits here, only seeds. So I like this story very much, and I think we are the seeds, and our job as seeds, and as you can see on the tree, the center part shows a little red heart, and we are that heart, we are that seed, which has a lot of potential to grow into a very big heart. And I think we are constantly given three choices in life when we face these kind of things. One is to give up, one is to give in, or to give it all you've got. And so when in the confusion and the fright of life, when our hearts kind of contract to this size, know that I remember that we have a potential and a capacity to enlarge it and live with love, no matter what is happening around us. And the other important thing that I've been learning is that prayer, yes, we pray to somebody, but then in return, we need to get our act together so we can also play a crucial role in it. I cannot just pray and misbehave and then want somebody else to come along and fix it. So that's one big lesson as to how do I respond to life versus reacting. And that's my responsibility. And my only responsibility is to choose love at any given moment. And then as a scientist, I like thinking about formulas and things of the kind. So I'd like to give you a formula, which is E plus R is equal to O, which means events plus response is equal to outcome. So that events can happen, but our response plays a crucial role in this to create the outcome we want. So how do we kind of work on ourselves? And that's all that work of trauma, healing, reactions, pain, and how can we cultivate that? And the reason of the tree is also that in the manure and the soil, a seed is sown and a beautiful tree grows up. So in the same way, we have the same same capacity. And what else? Yeah, the important piece over here in the process of being a seed is to be able to breathe. Peace is only a breath away, because that seed is essentially our wisdom and our capacity. And so when I say peace is only a breath away, knowing how to breathe and to connect with the inner peace is key. So practicing breathing through yoga, meditation, mindfulness is key to self-connection. So you can step back for a moment and find the best response in that given situation. And that breathing process also includes how do we observe, how do we see things happening and separate the stories that we create. The ability to separate our interpretations of what is happening and the meaning and the judgment that we give is how we create our outcomes. And so finally, I'll leave you with one quote. Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break, all things can be mended. So go love intentionally, extravagantly, unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for that light that is you. This is by L.R. Knost, Knost. Thank you.
Wow, thank you to all of our storytellers. Food for thought. Can we give them a virtual hand? Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. So now the invitation is for us to think about the seeds, really, the lessons that are growing inside of us that we need to share with others. So take a moment to reflect. Write your reflection in the chat, but please do not send it until I give you the signal. Let's take a moment.
Shirley, can you say again what we're responding to?
We're responding to, the question is the lessons, or really the seeds that are being planted in us, where we're learning, and those learnings are something that needs to be shared with other people. Does that help? Does that answer the question? Whoever asked the question, I'm not sure who asked me.
Kirsten.
That was me, Shirley.
Oh, okay. All right. Please do not let it go yet. Just hold it for a moment. Are people ready to let the waterfall go? Let it roll. Okay. Wow. Wow. Beautiful. I'm going to invite, I know we're a large group, but 3 people who want to briefly share so we can keep on our time schedule. If you would just raise your hand and unmute yourself, then we can ask 3 people to share with the group what their thought was. Anybody want to share verbally? I'm kind of looking through the scan to see. Okay, I saw a hand. I'm not seeing whose hand was that. Was it Anna Grace? Unmute. Unmute. Thank
There.
you. There you
Okay.
go. Yes.
Wasn't really sure, but I think all of the responses show that God is active and present with us, even in these times of turmoil and distress. But also I realize how fortunate I am to be retired and financially secure in a world where there are so many people who are suffering financially right now. So how to bring hope to them is, and to be active in trying to change our situation so we don't go back to normal, but actually be transformed as people of faith.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Okay. All of those, I saw Chappie. Was that a kind of waving it? Okay, Chappie, if you unmute yourself. Unmute. There you go.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was with all the comments. I've been blessed by just looking at the comments. I have the privilege as a chaplain of leading a prayer intercessory group, and we cover 5 countries. And for the last couple of weeks, we have spent a lot of time in prayer and crying with one another. We do meet, not like Zoom, but I have a bridge in which we meet and take prayer requests. And we've been doing a lot of crying and a lot of grieving for all our brothers and sisters. And I think that has been the key to sustaining us. Not that we are obviously able to meet with one another, a little difficult at this time, I understand that. But the fact that we could get on a bridge for just 30 minutes, talk about our prayer requests, talk about our pain, which we are all suffering, because all our brothers and sisters are affected with what's been happening, not only here, but as we see around the world. And the prayer of many of my brothers and sisters have lifted me up and kept me hopeful. So I hope we continue to seek ways that even within this group, we could call each other and pray with one another, because that's where the victory is. Thank you.
Thank you, Chappie. Okay, thank you all for
Dr. Fleming, you're on mute.
Thank you all for participating in that exercise. What powerful insight all of you have. And as someone tried to sum up, it really, whatever we call that higher power is with us, and the reassurance that we have wisdom and have been empowered to do and to act in the world. And sometimes that's on a personal level with each other, and sometimes that's out in the world and supporting other people. Great insights. So our next invitation is to an activity to consider 2 questions. And question 1 is, what are we called to do in times such as these? The second question is, how do we use this opportunity to create the world we want? Or how are we using the lessons that we've learned to create the world? Because some of us may already be in the midst of making the change that we seek. Again, we're going to invite you to breakout rooms. Those breakout rooms are going to be about 10 minutes in length, and then we will come back to the large room. And so I'm going to do a time check because we want to honor the time. Octavia, how are we on time? Can we do 1 or 2? We had 2 scheduled.
We do have time to be able to do 2.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we will have 2 10-minute sessions to talk about each of those questions, and those questions will be posted in the chat so that you can see them. So are we ready to move to our breakout rooms?
Yes, all right. I will send everyone to the breakout rooms.
When you get there, please push the join. It's Michelle.
Michelle.
If you're talking, you're on mute.
I was talking, didn't know I was on mute.
Yeah.
So welcome back, everybody. I apologize for that. We would love to have the harvest of the wisdom that was in the many chat rooms shared with each other so that we can learn from each other. So if there's anybody who would like to share right now, please raise your hand and we'll just share out a few thoughts. Also, I'm going to ask that you, are we doing another waterfall or not?
We actually have time to do a waterfall and some large share out if you want, like a couple of people, or if you want to have them share.
So we're going to share out for a couple of people, and then if you will type your thoughts from your breakout room into the chat room. But again, don't hit send yet. Don't hit send yet. So do we have anyone who wants to share? Edwina Hamilton?
I love the way she calls my full name. I think the common thread in our room was passion. And since we've been in isolation and spent time by ourselves, we've come to realize or come to know ourselves better, and how that connects with passion and how that connects with whatever it is we are called to do. Because we are all been blessed with different gifts and talents. And those gifts or talents have been purposed for the now, for what's going on right now. And so what we have been called to do is to tap into those passions and those natural gifts to be utilized for this moment in time.
Thank you. And Fahim elevating. Hello. Can you come next?
Good morning, Miss Michelle. You know I love you.
I love that.
Now, you know what? Just to reiterate, Miss Edwina hit on it for me. I think as a Black man in America, having looked at the history and having looked at the current circumstances, I was always, when this started, it was almost as if I was being baited consciously, and I was being divided in terms of how I saw the reality that I lived. You know, I'm raising a son, I'm raising daughters, I'm living the experience. And I was really, really confused because there were a lot of things wrapped up in so many points. But ultimately, the thing that I rested with and that came out of my group was, I said it to Edwina, for such a time as this, I was made to be one of the good guys. You know, I was made to be one of the champions for the people. And I think everyone in this room, male and female, have heard that call, because to give of yourself, your personal time and your life to ensure that others are okay says something about the commitment and says something about who you are as a person. But more than that, in this time, more than any other, you know, hope is about actions of love. Hope is about exchanges of dialogue that uplift. I don't have to tear anybody down. I don't think I have to reiterate the negatives that are going to. The question becomes, how do you get up every day and live your life for yourself? And how do you help those around you achieve the goals that they want? And in that, I'm satisfied. And in that, I'm also hopeful. I'm seeing the hope of the people. You know, I shared with my group that, you know, after those shenanigans in downtown Chicago and other places, you know, the Southeast Side came out and they helped board up stores. They helped sweep glass out of the street. They helped clean in the community. The children got with me and say, hey, Mr. Fa, what do you need us to do? So those are not the stories that are being exposed to everyone. And for the most part, hey man, Americans aren't like anybody on the planet. We do it an entirely different way. And I think that these times have shown us how great we can really be, because it's not the military that's helping the west side of Chicago. It's organizations. You know, it's Build, it's Taproots, it's all of the clergy. You know, it's everybody that's involved that just want better. And so I'm glad to be a part of that. And I'm glad to work with you guys and ladies, and I'm glad to be able to receive and do the work that I do. You know.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe take another one. I can't see all of the hands. Does anybody else want to share before we go to our waterfall? Harriet Dart just gave us an amen.
Hi, this is Plachette. I think one of the things we talked about in our group is taking action. I think we were talking about how the atmosphere is right for us to just to do things, and not to have to do things on such a big grandiose scale. I think sometimes when we want to take action, we think we need a whole lot of people and a whole lot of participants. But if we just take 1 or 2 churches or 1 or 2 groups to get together, we were talking about sharing stuff amongst the youth. 2 churches from different sides of the town getting together just to take some action, just to do it. Because when we do it, things multiply. The word gets out, people start sharing. Before you know it, you have 5 people that want to join you and 6 people that want to join you. But taking the action while the time is right for us to just do the work and not get so caught up in it having to be some big thing. Sometimes the best things happen small and then they grow.
Thank you. So if everybody, I see that Kirsten has said, take 1 or 2 steps. When we do, things multiply. Thank you. But is it Felicia who just shared? Flechette.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, so if you are ready, because remember, this is going to be the beauty of our sharing. Put in your chat your answer to either what we are called to do in times such as these, or how do we use this opportunity to create the world we want. See, also someone has put that it's important to operate within our gifts and talents. And while you're writing, I would share that one of the things that I've learned in connecting with different restorative justice groups, it's important for people to come out of their silos and out of their areas of comfort at this time. Okay, so are we ready? It'll be a shorter countdown this time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, hit send. Wow, they're coming in fast. We are called to be faithful, to show love and live peace. Tap into your gifts. And then finally, wow. I heard an amazing theory on why the discussion on racism is rising now related to the pandemic. We are hearing the call across America because we were compelled to stop being so busy, so preoccupied with our day-to-day running in circles. And that was shared by, and I'm so sorry, I hope I get it right. Well, you'll be able to see it in the circles, but the hidden talents and natural gifts coupled with passion allow us to move forward in these difficult times. There's a lot, there's a wealth of sharing in the chat room, and we are going to be blessed by being able to share those seeds with each other so they can be sown, well, they can be harvested the best. I'll turn this back over to, I believe, Dr. Peachy.
Okay, so now so I hope that you felt the rhythm of, we started with connecting with self, with our check-in and really kind of centering ourselves in who we are and what we're hoping for. Connecting to others, where we heard from others and really kind of explored together, what can we learn from each other? What are we learning? And now connecting to higher purpose. What are we called to? What's the call? And so, look, you know, we just know, just those of us who've been part of this planning, just a little bit that we know, but everyone around this circle of this Zoom room has amazing things that you're doing. And a lot of what what works is when we actually connect with each other and we actually share what it is that we're doing. So we really want to encourage that as much as possible. We have just a couple of examples of some things that are coming up, other opportunities to learn and to come together. I'm sure that you'll have some things too. I'm going to just share my screen again. Oops. We'll come to that in a second. Hang on, we'll get there. So what can you do? The first thing is we want you to share your own wisdom, your resources, your programs. We have a website, and there are some tools on that website. It's not the Chicago Trauma Informed Congregations Network. It's the website. It's a website for the Center for Faith and Community Health Transformation. So that's one website that has some resources. The Recast website also has some resources. But on the faithhealthtransformation.org website, which is for the Center for Faith and Community Health Transformation, we have a directory on there, and I'll show you, if I can get back to it now, show you what that looks like. So we have a directory where you can search by topic area. I've searched for trauma. One of the ones that came up in that list was the Recast program in Chicago, and so they've entered in, Octavia's entered in information about what they focus on, how to contact. You can check to get more program details by logging in, by creating a username to be able to come into this Nexus system where we have our directory, we have an event calendar where you can actually submit a new event. So if you have a program coming up that you want to share with others, this will go into our online calendar of events. And then you can also be part of the forum, which is a place where we can talk together and share information about upcoming events or resources or tools or that kind of thing that you want to share with others. So I really encourage you to go to that website, sign up, and add your information as well. Just a couple of other things that are happening. Michelle Day, who you've been hearing from, is the leader of a lot of the restorative justice work that's happening, particularly with faith communities in the area. And she talks about restorative justice as a way of life, not just tools or activities that we do. So we'll share these slides with everyone, so you'll get these slides, so you'll be able to have this information. But they do regular Peace Circle check-ins. They do restorative justice mini online educational sessions. It's a great way to just sort of piece by piece get familiar with restorative justice. And then there's a citywide restorative justice quarterly meeting coming up next Friday, June 26th from 9:30 to noon, which will be online and be an opportunity to learn more about what's happening with restorative justice. Just some other things that are going on. There's a grief support on Wednesdays that's through one of our parish nurses, who I believe is on the call today, Shawnee Purnell. We have a support team development workshop coming up tomorrow. It's still time, you can still sign up for it. It's a way to learn how to develop teams within your congregation and community that can provide support, especially right now where people are physically separated, people are isolated. It's just a really wonderful way to provide care and support for each other. McCormick Theological Seminary has a trauma symposium workshop trauma symposium that they do on the first and third Thursday of every month through the end of the year. The next one coming up is on disaster preparedness for the long haul, but I encourage you to go to their website. If you just Google Trauma Symposium, McCormick Theological Seminary, you'll find information on that series. It's led by Dr. Stephanie Crumpton. It's really good. I encourage you to take it in. Some other things that might be of interest: spiritual care in an age of hashtag Black Lives Matter is being led on Monday by Dr. Danielle Bahuro, really looking at what does it mean for us to provide spiritual care in this time and around racism. Psychological first aid is a great resource. It's different from mental health first aid. It's really focused on how do you respond in times of trauma or crisis or disaster. So, and that will be offered both in English, and there will be 2 sessions as well in Spanish. Anyway, more opportunities, prayer support line if you just need a time to pray with other people. Again, Shawnee Purnell, a faith community nurse, leads that. Conversation on spiritual care response for a global pandemic, also by Dr. Danielle Bahuru. So join the network. You're here, you're part of it. You're already in it. So if you want to make sure that you're on our list, contact either me or Octavia, or you can also go to faithhealthtransformation.org and sign up on our newsletter. There's a place where you can check to receive our newsletter, and that will add you into our list for anything that we send out. So Octavia also has some things from the recast perspective and some other things that are happening citywide that we want to be sure you know about. So I'll turn it back over to you, Octavia.
Great, thank you. So I just shared in the chat box 2 things that is good for everyone to be aware of. One, so is the virtual circles that are being hosted by Nehemiah that are coming up. So there's a flyer for that in the chat box. The second one is some of you may be familiar with the Truth Racial Healing transformation group. So we are doing racial healing groups for up to 12 people. And so I've included just an overview of what those racial healing circles are and how to be able to sign up for those.
And Octavia, I'm sorry, just so for clarity, you can join existing ones, or you can get facilitators to work with your own group. Is that correct?
Yes, so there are several live ones that you can just search on Eventbrite that are going on. There are over 43 of us who are trained to be able to do this work. And then you can also request for us to do a workshop for you, and so our racial healing circle. And so it's very crafted to your organization and even community and what it is that you would like. So on the flyer has both how to request and find that information too.
And those are offered both for separately people of color and then separate groups for white people. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So for our Black and Latino or Latinx groups, we can be together and or individually, or you can have specific groups that are for each race that you are working with or would like to have. So depends on how you like it. We recommend that you go through at least 3. We do have people that do just 1 session, which is fine, and we do some follow-up work around that. So the last is I'm going to share is because I don't want to forget our youth, but recently the mayor's office has created a My Shy, My Future. And so it is a website you can go to that is nothing but youth stuff. And it's recommended that actually the youth go so they can be able to say, I want to be a part of restorative practices and find who's doing youth-specific circles, who's doing youth-led circles, and be a part of those different things. So it's supposed to be a website that is geared towards the youth to keep them active. And so as summer comes up, that we are hopefully in safe, brave spaces, or at least doing things that keeps us occupied. And that is all the resources that I have to share. So we have a few more minutes left. Do we want to do some more dialogue, or should we just close out, Kirsten?
Yeah, I think you had a sort of a closing, right, Octavia?
Yeah. All right. So I will get us going.
Unless
Before we close, I guess there's one question for the group, if we've got a few moments. If there are people who have things they want to share and opportunities to please put it in the chat and then go to closing.
And I think my email was shared as well, and Kirsten, so sometimes it's, if you have a lot, like especially if it has attachments, you can be able to send that via email.
Do we have the, well, you have the ending. We'll see. The Val I was going to ask about.
Dr. Fleming?
Yes.
This is Dr. Rayner. Can I say something real quick?
Really?
Okay. I just want to say this is incredible. I'm enjoying a few days off as I celebrate my birthday, which is tomorrow. But I was so glad that I was invited to this. And though I don't know Miss Peachy, I'll have to get in touch with her since we both work with Advocate as well. But I just want to say that I'm so encouraged by this. And it's allowed me to doing things like this. These times have been very special because dealing with COVID-19, and as Pastor Moss says, COVID-16-19. You know what I mean? The change that's coming and is what's occurring, especially as relates to my job as a physician, and just seeing how the racial disparities in healthcare just really come to fore because of what's happened now. And discouraged a little bit because the Southside Health Consortium has failed, as it appears so far. And that's going to have a big impact on our community going forward. But at the same time, I appreciate all the work that each one of you all are doing, because each one of us, that what we do are parts of the whole. And as long as we show our faith through what we do and becoming spiritual examples of what we do, then we are doing what God would have, for me, what God would have us do. And I'm just encouraged by that. And you all have encouraged me, and I really appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me. I really do.
And thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
I just said back to you, Octavia.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. We've got a lot of great information that we've got from the chat box. And so we are going to do our best to put all that together and send that out to you all. You'll get the PowerPoint slide sooner than later, and that'll give you all of the things that Kirsten shared that you can be a part of and doing. And so speaking of that, we've shared a lot of great things in the breakout rooms and in the chat box. And so we want to leave today just making sure that we are moving from reflection to a little bit of activation, if you will. And so take a moment to think of everything that you've kind of heard and everything you've been able to reflect on. What is the one action that you will commit to taking to creating a better world? So get ready to send it in the chat box. Don't send it just yet. Let me put the question in there as well. So what is the one action that you can commit to taking to creating a better world? All right. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Share. Oh, love. I like that. Love in capital letters. To reach out and learn, yes. So we constantly have to build our wisdom and our knowledge and all of that. Good self-care so that I can best serve others, yes. I love Audre Lorde's self-care as activation and as resistance. So I appreciate those moments and liberation as well. Appreciating those around me, encouraging our youth to become more vocal. We did really try to get some youth to be on here today. They weren't quite ready to be in the same space. So we will continue to massage that relationship. Continuing the discussion. So hopefully you take this and you start to have this, if you're gonna be on a Zoom chat with your family later, this is a good conversation that you can also replicate with them so that it just doesn't sit here with us. Go ahead. Faith in Jesus. A lot of faith was coming up on here as well. Good. Listening with love and action. Excellent. So again, we'll get everything sent out to you all, and we appreciate your time. And please feel free to reach out to us in the interim if you have any questions, thoughts, or if you would even like to host a community of practice. So we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
All right. Safe.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye, Dana.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. This is truly what I needed today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good one.
Thank you. This has been very helpful.
Thank you. See, thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.